Eastern Sky International was built to impress. Glass panels 5 stories tall. Gleaming floors. Security systems more advanced than most government agencies. It was the crown jewel of the country's aviation sector. Clean, fast, efficient. Captain Ethan Blake had walked these corridors more times than he could count. Same uniform, same boots, same partner. Ranger. A Belgian Malinois with a coat like desert sand and eyes that missed nothing. Trained in narcotics, explosives, firearms detection, top of his class. But even among elite canines, Ranger had one trait that made him stand out: instinct. They were halfway through their morning patrol when it happened. Ethan was scanning Gate 14B when Ranger slowed beside him. Not a full stop, just hesitation. Then a pivot. The dog's head turned toward a woman sitting by the window, scrolling on her phone. Early 30s, smartly dressed, business casual, neutral colors, laptop bag on her lap. She looked up, smiled briefly. Then Ranger stepped forward, leaned in toward her bag, and lifted his paw. A single scratch. No bark, no freeze, no trained response. Just a soft scrape of claw against canvas. Ethan froze. Protocol said ignore it. No alert, no cause. Scratching wasn't a signal. Ranger was trained to sit for narcotics, lie down for firearms, bark once for explosives. This was nothing. Except it wasn't. Ethan had worked with enough dogs to know when they were bored, distracted, or reacting to a sandwich. Ranger wasn't bored. He wasn't hungry. He was focused. "Mom," Ethan said, stepping forward with a calm, practiced tone. "May I speak with you for a moment?" The woman blinked, surprised. "Of course. Is something wrong?" "Possibly nothing," Ethan said. "Just a routine check. May I ask what's in the bag?" "Electronics," she replied, lifting the strap. "Laptop, charger, a power bank, documents. I'm flying to Zurich for a conference." Her voice was steady, her hands not. Ethan's eyes flicked to the zipper, half closed. Warm fabric, no visible branding. The type of bag someone might overpack or swap out quickly. "Mind if I have a look?" She hesitated just a second too long. "Of course," she said. "Go ahead." Ethan opened the flap. He found a laptop, charger, some folders, and a power bank, heavier than usual. He picked it up and turned it over. The casing was smooth, too smooth, in-branded. He unscrewed the back, just to be sure, and saw wires where a lithium battery should be. Compact circuitry, a radio chip, dual capsules wrapped in foil. His gut dropped. Ranger sat. Now the real alert came. Ethan stepped back. "I need you to stand up." "Mom." Slowly. "Keep your hands visible." The smile dropped from her face like glass off a ledge. Security moved in within seconds. 2 agents flanked her. One reached for cuffs. "What is this?" she said. Her voice higher now. "What's happening?" Ethan's voice was flat, professional. "You're being detained pending investigation of a possible explosive device." She didn't resist, but her face changed. Not panic. Resignation. Like she'd known this was coming. As they walked her away, Ethan knelt beside Ranger, who was now alert, tail still, eyes locked on the bag. "Good boy," Ethan whispered. The terminal resumed its hum. But the unease in Ethan's chest didn't fade. Later, after the sweep, the bomb unit confirmed it. A disguised transmitter and chemical agent. Rigged to activate under pressure changes, specifically in a plane's cargo hold. Small radius, low yield, enough to kill the person carrying it. Not designed for mass harm. A targeted kill. A message. Someone had planned for that woman to never land in Zurich. But who, and why? Ethan stared at the evidence. The false power bank now sealed in a plastic bin. It didn't make sense. The woman had no record. No flagged contacts. She was in marketing. Traveled often. Clean passport. Background checks showed nothing. He reviewed the security footage again. The bag hadn't been with her when she entered the terminal. It appeared at a cafe table, delivered by a man who never showed up on the flight manifest. In and out in 5 minutes. Ethan didn't like questions with no edges. But one thing was clear. Protocol hadn't caught it. Ranger had. Not through training. Not through standard alerts. Through something deeper. Something that couldn't be taught. Ethan made a note in his log. Bag flagged by non-standard behavior. Further investigation needed. Recommend review of current detection protocol. He didn't write what he was really thinking. That sometimes, the best partner isn't the one who follows rules, but the one who knows when to break them. Eastern Sky International was not designed for subtlety. Every inch gleamed. Every announcement echoed. It was a place built on order, lines, systems, control, which made the woman heading toward Gate D7 feel like a ripple in still water. Ethan spotted her in the crowd from across the atrium, same face. Same build, but this time moving with purpose. Not the nervous shuffle of someone unsure. Not the measured walk of a traveler. This was something else. Nadia Yu. She'd been released hours earlier. No charges. No enough evidence to hold her. Not yet. The power bank hadn't been wired for detonation. Only transmission. Technically, suspicious but inconclusive. And yet, she was moving too fast. She pushed through the crowd like a current cutting up river. Her grip tight on a small black pouch at her side. Ethan followed. He signaled Ranger silently with a flick of his wrist. The dog moved like a shadow beside him, eyes locked. Ears alert. No leash. They didn't need one anymore. Gate D7 was boarding for a regional flight to Nairobi. Nadia slipped between two families. Ducked past the ticket kiosk. And pulled something from her pouch. A device no larger than a phone. With a blinking red LED on its surface. Ethan's voice dropped into command mode. Security. This is Captain Ethan Blake. Code red. All units lock down gates D6 through D8. Target moving fast. Possible detonation device in hand. But Nadia didn't wait. She turned, spotted Ethan behind her, and broke into a sprint. The chase ignited in an instant. She moved fast, faster than expected, cutting through clusters of travelers and leaping over abandoned luggage. Ethan pushed after her, cutting corners. calling warnings. Move. Security. People scattered. Ranger bounded ahead, weaving between legs like a streak of muscle and discipline. His nose tracked her scent. His eyes never wavered. Nadia bolted down the service hallway parallel to Gate D7, an emergency corridor used only by maintenance crews. Ahead was a red-marked security door. Authorized personnel only. She slammed into it with her shoulder. It didn't budge. She turned to run, just as Ranger launched. With a growl and a burst of motion, the dog hurled himself into her chest, knocking her flat to the ground. The device clattered from her hand, skidding across the floor. Ethan reached them seconds later. Gun drawn, breath sharp. Nadia lay still beneath Ranger's full weight, gasping, one arm twisted beneath her. Ethan kicked the device away and snapped a pair of flex cuffs around her wrists. "Stay down. Don't move." Nadia didn't scream, didn't fight. She just stared at him. "Too late," she whispered. Ethan's stomach twisted. He picked up the device. It wasn't a bomb trigger in the traditional sense. It was a link, Bluetooth-enabled, short range, meant to activate something nearby. He scanned the area. Security. He barked into his comms. "I need a full sweep of the D-Gate concourse. Locate any suspicious packages within a 300-meter radius. Priority level Alpha." Someone else was carrying it, or had already left it behind. Nadia turned her head slightly, eyes locked on Ethan's. "You think this is about one plane?" she murmured. "You don't even know what you're standing in the middle of." He stared back, cold. "No, but I'm about to find out." Within minutes, agents poured into the terminal. Bomb-sniffing dogs swept the area. One unit sealed off a restroom near Gate D9. Another began checking trash bins, abandoned strollers, utility closets. Then came the call. A cleaning crew had flagged an unattended backpack in a vending alcove between gates D6 and D8. It had no tags, no travel stickers. It wasn't on the manifest logs. Inside, a fragmentation device disguised in a laptop case. Active. Armed. Minutes from detonation. They defused it with seconds to spare. But it wasn't the only one. 2 hours later, security found another, hidden in a maintenance cart behind a shuttered souvenir shop. Different build, similar trigger profile. By then, Ethan had Nadia in an interrogation room, flanked by 2 federal agents. Her lawyer had yet to arrive. She sat cuffed, blank-faced, staring at the reflective glass. "You're not a terrorist," Ethan said finally, "not in the ideological sense." She didn't respond. "You're a courier. You carry things you don't ask about. You get paid not to know." Still nothing. "But this," he tapped the trigger device on the table. "You knew. This time. You knew." Nadia finally looked up. "I was supposed to be on that flight," she said quietly. "I was supposed to die with it." Ethan paused. "Why?" She gave a small, bitter smile. "Because I tried to leave. And they don't let anyone leave." He leaned in. "Who?" But she was already shutting down again, retreating behind silence. Whatever she'd been involved in, it was bigger than a single bombing. This wasn't about statements or chaos. This was cleanup. tying off loose ends. And Eastern Sky Airport had just become a battlefield disguised as a departure terminal. Ranger wasn't calm, even after Nadia Yu was in custody. Even after 2 hidden devices had been discovered and defused. The dog remained restless, ears twitching, eyes locked on every shadow, legs tense and ready. He wasn't pacing, he was searching. Ethan noticed it immediately. Dogs didn't fake instinct. Ranger tugged at his lead, nose low to the floor, moving in tight zigzags across the corridor. The way he moved reminded Ethan of something buried, something not where it should be. "You smell something," Ethan said under his breath. "Something we missed." The terminal was already half shut down. Security teams combed through checked baggage. Flight schedules were frozen. But Ranger wasn't focused on passengers or luggage. He headed for the side elevator. The one marked staff only, technical access. Ethan keyed his override into the panel. The elevator hummed and opened. Ranger jumped in without waiting. They descended 3 levels, beneath the check-in counters, below baggage handling, into the mechanical gut of Eastern Sky. Few personnel had clearance here. Air filtration, power routing, communication cables, the nerve center of the airport. A place of hums and silence. And potential blind spots. Ranger stopped halfway down the hall, nose pressed against the wall beneath an emergency panel. He scratched once, twice, then again. Ethan crouched and ran his hand along the base of the wall. Cold concrete, painted metal. Then, a gap. Thin, almost invisible. He pulled out his flashlight and shined it along the seam behind the electrical panel. There it was. A soft metallic gleam. Ethan yanked the panel open. Behind it, nestled deep inside the wall frame, hidden behind a layer of cable shielding, was a narrow metal cylinder. Matte black, taped flush to the structure. No blinking lights, no noise. But on its side, a digital countdown. 0 hours 12 minutes and 6 seconds. He didn't curse. He didn't breathe. Just radioed. Blake to command. "I've got a third device. Timer is live. Location: Sublevel 3. Electrical Sector 1. We've got 12 minutes. Static." Then, "Roger that. EOD en route. ETA 10 minutes." Ethan stared at the wiring. There were no standard access ports. No visible external triggers. This wasn't amateur work. It was custom. Built for concealment. Wired for destruction. He looked at Ranger, who was staring at a narrow slit near the rear of the casing, a structural opening barely wide enough to fit a finger. "Good boy," Ethan whispered. "That's where it breathes." He unzipped his utility pouch and pulled out his multi-tool. He wasn't an expert in all bomb types, but he knew this. If a device was designed for remote detonation, then it usually had a manual failsafe, a cutoff, a dead switch. He slid the tip of the tool into the slit. Felt resistance. Plastic. Maybe a sliding mechanism. He took a breath. Then moved the piece. Click. The countdown paused for half a second. Then resumed. 0 hours 11 minutes and 21 seconds. "Damn it," he hissed. "Wrong one." He scanned again. Behind the main panel was a second set of wires. shielded by a micro-hatch locked with a magnetic seal. Not meant to be opened without the right keycard. But Ethan had something better. He looked at Ranger. What now? Ranger stepped to the right, just a half pace, and scratched again. Right above a narrow pressure ridge. Ethan traced it. Another panel, hidden beneath paint, nearly invisible. He pressed gently. It popped open with a whisper of air. Inside, a green wire, capped with a locking tab, and a rubber switch marked only with a dot of faded red paint. Manual interrupt. This was it. He grabbed his radio. Blake to EOD. I've located what appears to be a manual disconnect. Device is complex, but there's a secondary panel accessed. Should I attempt a hard cut? Silence. Then static. Negative. Wait for. The line crackled and died. Too late. Ethan looked at the countdown. 0 hours 6 minutes and 3 seconds. They wouldn't get here in time. He put his fingers around the switch. One breath in, one out. He pulled. Click. The light went out. The timer froze. 0 hours 6 minutes and 2 seconds. Silence. Ethan didn't move. Didn't breathe. Then, slowly, the device's internal fan whirred down. Deactivation confirmed. He leaned back on his heels and let the adrenaline drain from his bones. Ranger exhaled beside him. You just saved an entire goddamn terminal. Ethan muttered. Ranger wagged his tail once. Back above ground, the bomb squad confirmed the findings. The device was real, chemically stabilized, pressure sensitive, and shielded from typical scanners. It had no wireless capability. This bomb was never meant to be found. The first two were distractions. This one was the kill switch. Placed deep in the core of airport infrastructure. It could have brought down communications, ignited fuel lines, or triggered a cascade failure in surveillance and power. And it was minutes from going off. All because of one scratch. One instinct. Ethan stood beside Ranger, watching as the bomb was wheeled away in a containment box. He crouched, looked him in the eye. I don't know how you knew, but I've stopped questioning it. Ranger just stared back. Calm now. Mission complete. But something still burned in Ethan's chest. If these bombs were planted so precisely, with such coordination, how many others were still waiting? This wasn't a lone incident. This was groundwork. And someone was still out there, watching the clock tick down. The break came quietly. A routine audit of terminal access logs turned up something odd. Drake Han, a senior systems technician, had entered the restricted sublevel 3 corridor before the device had been discovered. His badge swipe was logged 6 minutes before Ethan and Ranger arrived. But security footage showed no record of him leaving. He had no reason to be down there. When Ethan pulled his personnel file, it got stranger. Drake had worked at Eastern Sky for nearly 5 years. Clean record, no flags. But in the last 3 months, he'd taken 2 unscheduled leaves, each coinciding with suspected smuggling windows. He'd requested night shifts exclusively. And he'd just changed his banking information to an offshore account. Too many signals. Something snapped into place. Run facial rec across the departure lounge cameras. Ethan told the tech team. See if Drake was anywhere near Nadia U during her arrival. 2 hours later, the answer came. Drake had delivered the decoy bag. Wearing a maintenance jacket and cap. He'd walked past security, dropped the bag beside a cafe chair, and vanished into the crowd. He wasn't just involved. He was the handler. And he was still in the building. The manhunt ignited instantly. Security flooded the technical wings. All exits were sealed. Ethan and Ranger moved fast, cutting through staff tunnels toward the east sub-basement, where Drake's login badge had just pinged again, unauthorized. This time, a desperate mistake. They caught up to him near Cargo Tunnel C. He was running hard, bag slung across one shoulder. Grease-stained clothes. Eyes wide, lips tight. Ranger gave a single bark and surged ahead. Drake glanced back, saw the dog gaining, and veered left, diving into the tunnel's emergency stairwell. Drake, Ethan shouted. Don't run. It's over. Drake didn't stop. Ranger took the steps 2 at a time, claws scraping against concrete. Ethan followed, breath ragged. The tunnel ahead was dark, lit only by red emergency strips. A service cart tipped sideways blocked part of the path. They reached the loading bay just as Drake tried to smash a tablet against the wall. Ethan tackled him to the ground. The device clattered away, screen flickering. Hands where I can see them. Ethan roared. Drake didn't resist, but he was smiling, something cold, unreadable in his face. You're too late. Ranger stood guard, teeth bared, growling low. Ethan cuffed him and dragged him to his feet. Too late for what? Drake didn't answer. Ethan shoved him against the wall. Talk. Still that thin smile. The bombs were practice. A systems test. Fire drills for people who'll be dead before the alarms even sound. Who's the target? Drake's eyes gleamed. Flight 917. Tomorrow morning. Special clearance. Diplomatic channel. No screenings. No delays. Ethan's stomach dropped. He knew that flight. It was scheduled to carry high-ranking envoys from 3 countries, part of a new anti-trafficking initiative. Half the continent's intelligence framework would be on board. What's the plan? Drake didn't blink. You think I'm the mastermind? I'm just a thread. The weave is deeper than you can follow. Ethan stepped back. There was no time to argue. Every second wasted was a second closer to another catastrophe. He radioed command. We've got a confirmed insider. ID Drake Han. Target is Flight 917. Scheduled for 0830 hours tomorrow. I repeat, diplomatic flight is the true objective. Lock down every route to that plane. Copy that. Came the reply. ETA for extraction team is 2 minutes. Ethan turned to Drake. Who else is involved? A pause. Then Drake leaned forward, voice soft as dust. The crimson fog doesn't send warnings. They send shadows. You just caught one. Drake was taken into federal custody. But Ethan didn't go home. He spent the next 12 hours cross-checking every single crew manifest, cargo route, and delivery request related to Flight 917. Ranger stayed at his side the entire time. Tail low, head alert. They found a shipment. Cleared under diplomatic seal. No X-ray. No canine inspection. Just protocol. Scheduled to be loaded at 0700. Marked for Zurich. Same destination as Nadia. Same route. Ethan felt the cold settle deep in his bones. This was a network. Carefully planted. Meticulously timed. And still in motion. Morning at Eastern Sky International was quiet, but only on the surface. Inside the operations control tower, layers of security churned with activity. Flight 917 had been grounded. Its crew sequestered. The diplomatic cargo was seized. Every manifest, every badge swipe, every corridor camera was under scrutiny. But there was still one piece missing. One final thread. And it was Ranger who found it. He hadn't slept. Neither had Ethan. Together, they'd checked nearly every access tunnel. Every surveillance blind spot. It was near the west side of the maintenance hangars that Ranger paused. His ears pricked, nose twitching. He moved toward a stack of decommissioned lockers. Then he scratched. Ethan froze. A small, light scrape against steel, just like at the terminal days before. Just like the scratch that started it all. "Good boy," Ethan whispered, and crouched. Behind the lockers, wedged inside a disused service panel, was a metal case no larger than a hard drive. It wasn't explosive, but it was sealed and cold to the touch. Ethan popped it open with a flathead. Inside, a small drive. And taped beneath it, a folded card with a sequence of symbols, a cipher key. They decrypted the drive within the hour. Inside was a cache of logs, encrypted communications, access approvals, and one video message. It showed a man seated in an airport office, wearing a badge. Deputy Director Marcus Vale. A name that had never been on any suspect list. A name trusted by every branch of security from terminal to tower. He'd been with the airport since it opened. Unshakable, respected, and a traitor. He had signed off on every cargo exemption, every blind scan, every shift rotation that allowed the Crimson Fog's devices to pass unnoticed. He wasn't just part of the network. He was leading it. They found Vale an hour later, alone. Inside Hangar 3, prepping a private jet scheduled to depart under emergency diplomatic clearance. The airstrip had been cleared for security drills. No one would have known he was leaving. Ethan arrived with a tactical unit. But as soon as Vale saw the convoy, he fired 2 shots into the air and ran, through crates, across scaffolds, deeper into the echoing skeleton of the hangar. Ethan followed. The chase was fast, jagged, full of blind turns and rusted catwalks. Vale knew the structure well. He had helped design the emergency escape routes. They reached the upper gantry, just above the wings of the jet. When it happened, Vale turned and fired. Ethan was too exposed. The bullet tore through his side, spinning him into the railing. He hit the steel hard, blood already spreading through his shirt. Ranger's bark echoed like thunder. He launched upward from the base of the catwalk, claws scrambling against the steel rungs. Vale tried to reload, but he was too slow. Ranger collided with him mid-step. The gun clattered to the floor. They fell hard. Ranger's jaws clamped down on the man's forearm, holding him fast. Vale screamed, struggling, but it was over. By the time backup reached them, Ethan was sitting against the railing, clutching his wound, blood on his lips but a fire still burning in his eyes. Ranger was beside him, calm, alert, unmoving, watching. 2 weeks later, Eastern Sky International resumed normal operations. The scandal made global headlines. The Crimson Fog's inner ring was shattered. Arrests were made across 3 countries. Flight 917's diplomatic envoy was saved with less than 24 hours to spare. Deputy Director Marcus Vale was in federal custody, awaiting trial. Ranger was recommended for national honors. But for Ethan, it wasn't about ceremonies. It was about a notebook. His field log. He sat on the edge of his hospital cot, the bandage still tight around his ribs, and flipped to the final page. The handwriting wasn't neat, but the words were clear. Protocols didn't teach me to trust a scratch. They didn't tell me when to break the checklist. But that scratch, that instinct, it saved hundreds of lives. And reminded me that sometimes the system doesn't see the threat. But a partner does. Captain Ethan Blake. He closed the book and looked down at Ranger, resting with his head on Ethan's boot. A quiet sentinel. Not just a tool, not just a dog, but the partner who broke the rules, so they could rewrite what safety really meant.
Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please comment 1. And if you didn't, just hit like. See you in the next videos.